Creating barcodes in Omega is very similar to the process for creating sequential numbering or auto text merge of variable data. To start with, I'm just going to create my initial decal. So I'm going to make it 2 inches by 4 inches. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my regular indicator for auto number. I'll start with auto number just to show how quick and easy it can be. So I'll change my text height to be 0.7 inches, and then I'm going to use my indicator for auto number, pound 1. And in this case I'm using brush script. I'm going to just change my font to something more mainstream. Not that it matters because it's going to turn into a barcode, but I just want to make sure I have something reasonable. Okay, so from here, the way that you set up your original decal is the way it's going to repeat. So if this were just regular sequential numbering and I wanted this to be apple green edge printing, I would assign it apple green, or probably something more likely is if I wanted it to be black printing. So I'll assign it to be black. I'll turn my cuts off. I'll go to arrange and then cuts off. And then for the outside, in this case, I'm just going to keep it simple and say I just want my outside edge to be a straight cut. So it's going to cut on the vinyl cutter, so that's why we see that our wireframe is black, meaning it's going to cut. I'm also just going to select that and automatically align it. I did Shift F9 and make sure it's centered in the middle. And now I'm ready to go ahead and do my repeats. I go to Tools, the Tools menu, and then Repeats Merge. And now from here, the way that I set up my number of X repeats and Y repeats is the number of sequential numbers that I'm going to generate. So here I say I want 25 repeats, and then I can click on my Auto Number tab. And here you can set up your starting value, your increment value. So say I only wanted these to be odd numbers starting with 1. I could set my starting value to be 1 and my increment value to be 2. So it would be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And in terms of leading character, I'm going to say I want none. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on OK. And now you see my sequentially numbered job along with my cuts for the outside edge. Now just to add one additional layer on top of this, if I wanted to turn this into a barcode, I would just double click on my repeats and bring up my reaction dialog box and then go into my repeats merge choice. And now you notice if you go to the auto number tab again, there's a choice to generate as barcode. I'll turn that on and then go to barcode properties, and this is where you can choose the type of barcode that you want. Some of the popular ones are code 39, which we have here. So let me go CO, and we have code 39. And if I wanted to generate this as code 39, for code 39 you have some choices for having some text that you can preview. So there you see it. This is just sort of a preview of what it's going to look like. It's not the actual data that's going to be repeated in Composer. And you can choose to put the text above or the text below. And you can also choose the font size and the font style for your human readable text. So for code 39, click on OK. And now you see that my barcodes are actually generated as a series of monochrome images. And there's my human readable component below it. Okay. And if I select one of these images and go into my fill dialog box, you see that because I started off with black spot color for my original text that I assigned as pound 1, it maintained that same spot black for my barcodes once they were generated. If I want to change this to a QR code, I don't have to do code 39 first. I just showed that as an example. I just double clicked on the text, went into my reaction box, chose repeats merge. Now I'm going to go to barcode property again, and I can drop this down and look for, press Q on the keyboard, brings me to QR code. And for QR code you don't get any human readable text or anything like that. It's just basically a square. And in terms of the formatting of your barcode, you have some choices here. So if I want my barcode to be the same height as my original pound 1 text, I can tell it to use text height. And depending on the type of barcode, for example code 39, it might be relatively short but relatively long. There's a default that can be automatically generated, and that can be derived from the height if you wish. So I just usually tell it to use my text height, and for the barcode width to derive the width from my height. And now for my QR code, I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And now I have my QR codes generated as, so this is 13579 generated as a QR code and basically ready to be printed to the edge and then cut on your edge compatible plotter. If you wanted to step back and do this as variable data or sequential data, it's basically the same process. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo all this back to the beginning. Except when you do variable data, instead of doing #1, you do &1. &1. So there I have my &1. And again, the way you set up your original &1 is how it's going to repeat out once you generate your data. So I'm going to keep it black again, but if I made it apple green, it would generate as apple green. If I made it kumquat or transparent plum purple or what have you, it would generate as transparent plum purple. So I'm going to select all again, go into Tools, and once again go into Repeats Merge. Now, once I'm in Repeats Merge again, I set my number of repeats, and you can get a preview for your height and your length over here. But now I'm going to go into my Text Merge tab, and what you need to also provide is the data for the variable data. So the composer is not going to make up, people's names or their eye color or their addresses or their shoe sizes or whatever the variable data might be. So you have to create a text file. And a text file is a TXT file, and there are instructions in Online Helper in the manual about the exact way to create this TXT file, but it's really very simple. And I'll show an example here. So let me see. I have firstnames.txt. So this is a series of names that I've created. I'm going to go ahead and edit that file to firstnames.txt just to show. So here are a series of people's first names, and you notice since I'm only doing an &1, I just have one data field that I'd like to merge. So you have to actually put the number of data fields right at the top of the TXT file. So I put a 1 in there, and then I put a series of names or whatever the data is. Each piece of data needs to be on its own line with the Enter key pressed between them. So that's what this one is here, and I probably have a series of, I don't know, maybe 25 names or so. I'm going to exit out of here. So again, you have to do &1, and then you have to either specify or create your data file with a number at the top of the file that denotes the number of fields that are in that file. Sounds worse than it is. Don't worry, it's not that complicated. And then once again, I can just generate this just as straight text. Click on OK, and here we see all the people's names. And there's one long name over here. I could go back and edit that individually or change my text height or whatever. But I'm actually going to just go back in here again and generate this once again as a barcode. So I'm going to click on my Text Merge tab, click on Generate as Barcode, go to Barcode Properties. This time I'll just keep it as a QR code, and if I want to make it a little bit bigger, I can also do a custom height. So I'll say I want it to be 1 inch high, and then I still want it to derive my width from my height, and I'll click on OK, and we'll see what happens. And there's my series of barcodes with all those first names as the data. So that's a quick summary, a quick overview of creating barcodes in Gerber Omega. And basically, again, it's just an extension of doing auto number, which is a series of sequential numbers, or auto text, which is the merging of data from a user provided data file.